On a cold winter night in New York, billionaire Joseph Chetrit stares at the crumbling Gothic facade of the Chelsea Hotel, a place of artistic history and scandal, now his albatross. After spending over 15 years and hundreds of millions in renovations, he stands at the precipice of losing everything again. For 80 years, this iconic building has not just witnessed the rise and fall of great artists, but has devoured every owner who tried to tame its secrets. From Stanley Bard, who inherited a dynasty and watched it slip through his fingers, to Chetrit's ill-fated efforts to resurrect the hotel, no one has come out unscathed. Why has the Chelsea Hotel, where Sid Vicious killed Nancy Spungen and Leonard Cohen wrote his greatest songs, become New York's most cursed building? This is the tragic, haunting story of the artists and tycoons who thought they could conquer the Chelsea and lost everything. The dream that demanded everything. In the early 20th century, the Chelsea Hotel rose as a beacon for artists, a symbol of New York's bohemian soul. But what began as a sanctuary would soon become a nightmare. The year was 1883. Manhattan's skyline stretched upward with industrial ambition. The Chelsea neighborhood hummed with the energy of immigrants and artisans. On West 23rd Street, architect Philip Hubert unveiled his masterpiece. 12 stories of red brick and iron balconies, the tallest building between 14th Street and 42nd. The Chelsea was never meant to be a hotel. Hubert designed it as cooperative apartments, a radical concept for America. He called it Hubert Home Clubs. Residents would own shares rather than pay rent. Artists and intellectuals would build a utopian community. The building featured the city's first penthouse apartments. Ornamental ironwork adorned every floor. Gothic revival details gave it the appearance of a European palace transplanted to Manhattan. But the dream collapsed within a decade. The cooperative model failed. The Panic of 1893 devastated New York's economy. Shareholders abandoned the building. By 1905, the Chelsea had been converted into a hotel. The transformation was reluctant. The building never truly accepted its commercial fate. Its layout remained awkward for hospitality. Apartments ranged wildly in size and shape. Some rooms had kitchens, others had none. The Chelsea became a hotel that behaved like a boarding house, a commercial enterprise with the soul of a commune. This confusion became its identity. The early managers understood something crucial. The Chelsea's unconventional spaces attracted unconventional people. Writers needed quiet rooms and long leases. Painters needed high ceilings and north-facing windows. Musicians needed tolerant neighbors and flexible payment plans. The hotel began accepting art as rent. This was not charity. It was survival. Empty rooms generated no income. A painting might appreciate. A sculpture could be sold. The Chelsea became a patron by accident. By the 1920s, the building had developed a reputation. Mark Twain lived there briefly. O. Henry wrote stories in room 247. The hotel appeared in novels and poems. Its name became synonymous with artistic struggle and bohemian freedom. Rents stayed low. Management stayed lenient. The building seemed to choose its residents as much as they chose it. But beneath the romance lay calculation. The Chelsea operated on the edge of financial viability. Maintenance costs exceeded rental income. The building's ornate ironwork required constant repair. The plumbing system dated to the 19th century. Heating bills consumed whatever profit remained. Owners came and went. Each promised renovation. Each departed defeated. The building resisted improvement. It demanded sacrifice. The Chelsea had become something more than architecture. It was an idea made manifest, The notion that art mattered more than money, that community transcended commerce, that beauty justified suffering. These were dangerous ideas. They would claim every life they touched. The hotel's physical presence dominated the block. Its 12 stories cast shadows over neighboring buildings. The red brick facade glowed amber in sunset. Iron balconies created intricate patterns against the sky. Residents hung paintings from the railings. Flags and banners appeared during holidays. The building announced itself. It refused to blend. It stood as a monument to difference. Inside, the Chelsea functioned as a vertical village. Each floor developed its own character. The lobby served as town square. Residents gathered to gossip and argue. Artists displayed works in the hallways. Parties spilled between apartments. The hotel manager became mayor, mediator, and confessor. The position required diplomacy more than hospitality training. By the 1930s, the pattern was established. The Chelsea attracted those fleeing conventional society, painters escaping academic tradition, writers rejecting commercial publishing, musicians exploring avant-garde sounds. The building offered sanctuary. It asked only devotion in return. That devotion would prove expensive. The Great Depression should have destroyed the Chelsea. Hotels across Manhattan closed. Residents could not pay rent. Yet the Chelsea survived. Management accepted whatever residents could offer. Labor in place of money. Art in place of cash. The building filled with the desperate and brilliant. They formed a community bound by shared poverty and shared purpose. This was the Chelsea's true foundation, not Hubert's cooperative dream, not the hotel conversion, but the understanding that survival required mutual sacrifice. The building would shelter artists. Artists would sustain the building. Each fed the other, each consumed the other. The dream demanded everything. It always had. The question was never whether the price would be paid, only who would pay it. The artist's dream, the tycoon's trap. By the 1940s, the Chelsea's reputation as the artistic hub of New York had attracted every ambitious artist, from Dylan Thomas to Andy Warhol. But the building itself had begun to change. The war transformed Manhattan. Soldiers returned seeking purpose. The GI Bill funded education. Art schools overflowed with veterans studying painting and poetry. Greenwich Village became too expensive. Artists pushed north into Chelsea. The hotel stood ready to receive them. Dylan Thomas arrived in 1950. The Welsh poet was already famous, already drinking himself to death. He took room 205. The small space overlooked 23rd Street. Thomas wrote by day and drank by night. The Chelsea's bar became his second home. He died 3 years later at St. Vincent's Hospital. The Chelsea claimed its first legendary casualty, but death only enhanced the building's mystique. Thomas Wolfe had lived there decades earlier. His novel, You Can't Go Home Again, featured the hotel. Virgil Thomson composed operas in room 817. Arthur Miller wrote plays while hiding from Hollywood. Each artist added to the legend. The Chelsea became a living museum. Except the exhibit still breathed. The 1960s brought a new generation. Beat poets, abstract expressionists, folk musicians. Bob Dylan wandered the hallways. Leonard Cohen wrote Chelsea Hotel No. 2 about a liaison with Janis Joplin. Jimi Hendrix jammed in various rooms. The building vibrated with creativity. It also vibrated with drugs, violence, and madness. This was when the change began. Real estate developers noticed the Chelsea's location. 23rd Street sat between trendy neighborhoods and commercial districts. The building occupied valuable land. Its 12 stories seemed quaint compared to modern towers. Developers saw potential. They saw profit. They began circling. The Bard family had managed the Chelsea since 1939. David Bard purchased controlling interest during the Depression. He understood artists. He valued community. When David died in 1968, his son Stanley inherited both the building and its philosophy. Stanley was 28 years old. He believed in the Chelsea's mission. He also recognized its financial fragility. Stanley faced impossible mathematics. Rental income could not cover operating costs. The building required millions in deferred maintenance. Heating systems failed regularly. Plumbing backed up. Elevators broke down. The ornate ironwork rusted. Paint peeled. Windows cracked. Yet Stanley could not raise rents without destroying the community. The Chelsea's artistic residents lived on nothing. They had no other options, so Stanley made compromises. He allowed some apartments to fall into disrepair, focused resources on occupied units, accepted art as payment, extended deadlines, forgave debts. He became not just a landlord, but a patron. This generosity won loyalty. It also created dependency. Residents stayed for decades, some never left. The building became a prison disguised as sanctuary. Outside forces grew stronger. The city designated the Chelsea a landmark in 1966. This seemed like protection. It was actually a trap. Landmark status prevented demolition. It also prevented profitable renovation. Stanley could not convert apartments to condos, could not modernize the facade, could not adapt to market demands. The building was frozen in time. Its expenses were not. Property taxes rose. Energy costs increased. Insurance premiums climbed. The Chelsea generated less revenue each year while costs accelerated. Stanley borrowed against the building, took loans from investors, promised future returns that could never materialize. The arithmetic of failure was simple. The emotional calculus was complex. Stanley loved the Chelsea. He loved its artists. He loved the community his father built. But love could not pay bills. Sentiment could not repair boilers. Nostalgia could not satisfy creditors. The building demanded sacrifice. Stanley sacrificed his financial security, then his marriage, then his health. The Chelsea consumed him slowly. By the 1970s, the tension was visible. The hotel's facade showed decay. Graffiti covered the lower floors. Windows went unrepaired. The lobby smelled of mildew and cigarettes. Yet inside, creativity flourished. Patti Smith lived there with Robert Mapplethorpe. They created art in poverty. The poverty was real. The art was real. Both fed each other. Wealthy observers saw contradiction. A valuable building in disrepair. A prime location underutilized. They saw waste. They saw opportunity. They began making offers. Stanley refused them all. He was protecting more than property. He was defending a way of life. But every defense has a cost. The Bard family fell deeper into debt. Mortgages piled upon mortgages. The building groaned under financial burden as much as physical decay. Stanley worked 18-hour days, mediated disputes, collected what rent he could, begged banks for extensions. The Chelsea had become his life's work. It was also becoming his tomb. The dream that began with Philip Hubert's utopian cooperative had evolved into something darker. The building still offered sanctuary, but it demanded everything in return. Artists gave their sanity. Owners gave their fortune. The Chelsea took and took. It never gave back enough. The trap was closing, not just on Stanley, on everyone who believed the dream could survive contact with reality. The 1980s would prove them all wrong. The first fall, Stanley Bard's family empire. For decades, Stanley Bard ruled the Chelsea Hotel with an iron fist, but his family's reign was about to meet a catastrophic end. Stanley Bard became more than a hotel manager. He became a mythological figure. Artists called him both savior and tyrant. He kept rents impossibly low. He also decided who stayed and who left. His word was law. His moods determined fates. The Chelsea was not a democracy. It was a benevolent dictatorship until it was not benevolent at all. The 1980s brought new challenges. New York City teetered on bankruptcy. Crime consumed neighborhoods. The crack epidemic turned streets into war zones. The Chelsea sat in the middle of collapsing Chelsea, a neighborhood that shared its name but not its romantic reputation. Prostitutes worked 23rd Street. Drug dealers occupied nearby buildings. Violence became routine. Inside the hotel, conditions deteriorated. Plumbing failures flooded apartments. Heating systems broke during winter. Residents went weeks without hot water. The elevators stopped working. Elderly tenants climbed 12 floors. Stanley could not afford repairs. The building's landmark status prevented cheap fixes. Every repair required approval. Every approval cost money. Every delay caused more damage. Stanley's solution was improvisation. He hired residents to fix things, paid in rent credits, let artists paint murals to cover water damage, installed space heaters instead of fixing the boiler. These solutions created new problems. Unlicensed repairs violated codes. Space heaters started fires. The city issued violations. Fines accumulated. The debt spiral accelerated. But Stanley could not stop. The Chelsea had consumed his entire adult life. He had no other identity, no other purpose. The building was his family's legacy. His father, David, had saved it during the Depression. Stanley would not be the one who lost it. This determination blinded him to reality. The Bard family owned 60% of the building. Other investors held the remainder. Those investors grew restless. They watched property values rise across Manhattan. They watched the Chelsea decline. Their shares decreased in value while neighboring properties sold for millions. They demanded change. Stanley refused. The conflict became inevitable. In 1992, minority shareholders sued Stanley. They accused him of mismanagement, of running the hotel for artists instead of profit, of allowing the building to decay, of refusing reasonable offers to sell. The lawsuit claimed Stanley's romantic vision destroyed their investment. They wanted him removed. They wanted the building sold. Stanley fought back. He argued the Chelsea was priceless, that its cultural significance transcended money, that a community of artists mattered more than investor returns. He was right. He also lost. The court sided with the minority shareholders. Stanley's management had indeed destroyed value. The building needed $20 million in repairs. It generated barely enough income to cover operating expenses. No bank would lend against such a property. No investor would buy shares. The Chelsea had become financially toxic, but Stanley retained control through family ownership. The legal battle cost hundreds of thousands in attorney's fees. Money the building did not have. Money Stanley borrowed. The debt grew. The building decayed. The community frayed. Residents took sides. Some supported Stanley's vision. Others recognized the disaster. Arguments erupted in hallways. Former friends stopped speaking. The sense of community that defined the Chelsea began cracking. The building was dividing against itself. By the late 1990s, the situation was desperate. The Chelsea owed millions in back taxes, owed millions in deferred maintenance, owed millions to creditors. The building's market value was perhaps $15 million. Its debts exceeded its worth. This was insolvency. This was failure. Stanley made one last attempt to save the dynasty. He partnered with BD Hotels, a boutique firm, in 2000. They would invest in renovations, modernize the hotel, preserve the artistic community while creating profitable rooms. It seemed like salvation. It was actually the beginning of the end. BD Hotels discovered the true extent of decay. The building needed $40 million in work, not 20. Asbestos filled the walls. Lead pipes contaminated the water. The electrical system was a fire waiting to happen. The iron balconies were rusting through. Every inspection revealed new horrors. The partnership collapsed within a year. BD Hotels withdrew. They could not make the numbers work. The Chelsea could not generate enough income to justify the investment. Stanley was alone again, deeper in debt, older, tired. The building was dying. So was he. In 2003, Stanley lost a final legal battle. The courts ordered the building prepared for sale. Residents would be evicted if necessary. The Chelsea's artistic community would be destroyed. Everything David Bard built, everything Stanley protected, all of it would end. Stanley Bard had ruled for 35 years. He had sheltered generations of artists, preserved a unique community, defended an idea against the forces of commerce. He had also driven his family to financial ruin, destroyed investor wealth, let a landmark building crumble. These contradictions defined him. They also defined the Chelsea. The Bard era ended not with glory, but with exhaustion. Stanley remained as manager during the transition, a figurehead overseeing his own defeat. He watched strangers tour the building, calculating demolition costs, estimating condo values, discussing the Chelsea as if it were just another property. The family empire fell exactly as empires do. Slowly, then suddenly. Years of small compromises, decades of deferred maintenance, generations of choosing art over arithmetic. The bill came due all at once. Stanley could not pay it. The Chelsea had demanded everything. Stanley gave it. The building took his youth, his money, his family's fortune, his peace of mind. In return, it gave him purpose, a place in history, a reputation. Whether that was enough, whether any of it mattered, only Stanley could say. But his silence spoke volumes. The building had won. It always won. The curse of the Chelsea. A battle for ownership. Enter Joseph Chetrit, the billionaire who thought he could rewrite the Chelsea's story, but soon learned he was bound by its curse. Joseph Chetrit was not a romantic. He was a numbers man. A real estate developer who built his fortune on distressed properties across Manhattan. He purchased buildings others abandoned, renovated them, sold them for profit. By 2010, his portfolio included the Cartier mansion and the former Sony building. His net worth exceeded $1 billion. He had never failed. The Chelsea Hotel appeared on his radar as an opportunity. The Bard family was desperate. The building was landmarked, but that meant prestige, not just restriction. The location was perfect. The bones were solid. Yes, it needed work. But Chetrit specialized in resurrection. He could transform the Chelsea into Manhattan's most exclusive boutique hotel. Charge $2,000 per night. Fill it with celebrities seeking authentic New York experience. In 2011, Chetrit led a partnership that purchased the Chelsea for $80 million. The price seemed high. The building was dilapidated, but Chetrit saw potential. He estimated $15 million in renovations, 2 years of work, then profit. The mathematics were simple. The execution would be impossible. The curse revealed itself immediately. Chetrit's team began assessing the building. Every inspection uncovered new problems. The foundation was cracking. Water infiltration had rotted structural supports. Asbestos contaminated 60% of the building. The electrical system could not support modern loads. The plumbing dated to the 19th century. Sewage backed up into lower floors. The ironwork was decorative rust. The $15 million estimate became $30 million, then 40, then 60. Engineers recommended gutting the interior completely, starting over. But landmark restrictions prevented that approach. Every change required Landmarks Preservation Commission approval. Every approval took months. Every delay cost money. Chetrit faced a problem beyond arithmetic. The Chelsea still had residents. About 100 people living in rent-controlled apartments. Stanley Bard had given them lifetime leases. Legal eviction would take years. Illegal eviction would trigger lawsuits. The residents organized, hired attorneys, contacted media. They framed Chetrit as a heartless developer destroying artistic community. The public relations nightmare began. Newspapers ran stories about struggling artists versus billionaire developer. Protesters gathered outside the building. City council members gave speeches defending residents. Landmarks commissioners delayed approvals. Chetrit was trapped in bureaucratic quicksand. He tried negotiation, offered buyouts. Some residents accepted, most refused. They had nowhere to go. Affordable housing in Manhattan had vanished. The Chelsea was their last refuge. They would not leave. They would fight. The building had taught them resistance. Construction began in 2012. Chetrit planned to renovate unoccupied rooms first, create model units, prove the concept, then convince remaining residents to relocate temporarily. It seemed logical. Nothing about the Chelsea was logical. Workers discovered the building was actively hostile to renovation. Walls crumbled when touched. Floors collapsed under equipment. Hidden pipes burst. Electrical fires erupted. Every day brought new catastrophes. Contractors quit. New ones demanded premium rates. The Chelsea developed a reputation. Workers called it cursed. Some refused to enter. The costs mounted. 70 million, 80 million, 90 million. Chetrit's partners grew nervous. They had invested expecting quick returns. 3 years passed. The building was still a construction site. No rooms were generating income. Legal fees exceeded $1 million per year. The project was hemorrhaging money. Chetrit doubled down. He could not abandon the Chelsea. His reputation was at stake. His fortune was invested. Walking away meant admitting defeat. He had never been defeated. The building sensed this pride. It fed on it. In 2015, disaster struck. A construction accident injured 3 workers. Inspectors shut down the site. Investigations revealed code violations, unsafe conditions. The city issued stop work orders. Months of progress vanished. Contractors filed liens. Chetrit fought back, paid fines, made changes. The work resumed. The curse continued. Residents remaining in the building suffered. Construction noise shook apartments. Dust filled the air. Water and heat shut off during repairs. Some residents were elderly, some were ill. The conditions bordered on uninhabitable. Lawsuits multiplied. Judges sided with residents, ordered Chetrit to improve conditions. Each court order added expense. By 2016, Chetrit had spent over $150 million. The building was still not finished, not even halfway finished. Engineers estimated another $100 million needed. Chetrit did the math. $350 million total investment. The building would need to generate $30 million per year to justify that cost. No hotel in New York could generate those returns. The project was doomed, but stopping meant losing everything. Chetrit had borrowed against the building. His lenders expected repayment. If he defaulted, they would seize the Chelsea, auction it. Chetrit would lose his investment and face bankruptcy. The curse had him trapped. He explored alternatives, converting apartments to condos. But landmark status prevented that, selling the building as is. But who would buy this mess? Other developers studied the Chelsea. They all walked away. The building had become untouchable. Chetrit's health deteriorated. The stress was consuming him. He stopped sleeping. Developed anxiety. His other projects suffered from distraction. The Chelsea was devouring more than money. It was devouring his life. In 2017, Chetrit made a desperate move. He partnered with new investors, brought in fresh capital, promised the project was nearly complete. This was a lie. He knew it was a lie, but he needed to believe salvation was possible. The new investors studied the building. They saw the same problems. They also saw Chetrit's desperation. They negotiated control. Chetrit's stake diminished. His role reduced. He was losing the Chelsea. The curse was winning. The building stood on 23rd Street. Scaffolding covered its facade. Windows were dark. The lobby was empty. Construction debris filled hallways. The Chelsea had become a corpse, a monument to ambition destroyed. Chetrit stared at it some nights, wondering how it went so wrong. The building stared back, silent, waiting, patient. The curse was real, not supernatural, but mathematical. The Chelsea's landmark status plus deferred maintenance plus regulatory complexity plus resident activism equaled impossible economics. No owner could succeed. The building ensured it, by existing as it was, by demanding what it demanded, by refusing to change. Chetrit had thought he was different, smarter, richer, more determined. He was wrong. The Chelsea treated billionaires the same as bohemians. It consumed them all. An empire built on sand. Behind the glamour, the Chelsea's walls held dark secrets of failed dreams and financial desperation. The numbers told a story the romance obscured. The Chelsea Hotel never made money, not in its cooperative phase, not as a hotel, not under any owner. The building existed in permanent financial crisis, sustained only by successive injections of capital from owners who believed the next renovation would fix everything. Start with the foundation. Philip Hubert's cooperative dream collapsed because the mathematics never worked. He sold apartments for $8,000 each in 1883. That generated perhaps $400,000 in total revenue. Construction costs exceeded $500,000. Hubert lost money from day one. His investors lost everything. The conversion to hotel in 1905 was an admission of failure. Hotels could adjust rates, evict non-paying guests, generate consistent income, except the Chelsea could not do these things. Its irregular layout made standardization impossible. Some rooms were 800 square feet, others were 200, some had kitchens and bathrooms, others shared facilities. Pricing was arbitrary. The early managers discovered a crucial fact. Artists and writers made terrible hotel guests. They stayed for months or years. They demanded low rates. They could not be evicted without publicity disasters. But conventional travelers avoided the Chelsea. The building's reputation for bohemian chaos deterred mainstream guests. The hotel was trapped between two markets. It served neither well. David Bard's purchase in 1939 cost $90,000, a bargain during the Depression. The building was worth perhaps $300,000. Bard paid a third of market value. This seemed like shrewd investing. It was actually buying a liability. Bard inherited $150,000 in deferred maintenance. The building needed new plumbing, new wiring, new boilers, new everything. Bard never made those investments. He could not afford them. The hotel generated $30,000 annual rent. Operating costs consumed $25,000. That left $5,000 for maintenance, taxes, debt service, and profit. The mathematics were impossible. Bard survived by not maintaining the building, by accepting art for rent, by treating the Chelsea as a charity project. This model worked during the Depression and war years. Expectations were low. Alternatives were scarce. Artists accepted squalor, but post-war prosperity changed calculations. Rents across Manhattan increased. The Chelsea's rates remained frozen. The gap between income and expenses grew yearly. By 1950, the building needed $1 million in repairs. Its annual net income was perhaps $10,000. At that rate, renovations would take 100 years. The deterioration accelerated faster than income accumulated. The Chelsea was a decaying asset. David Bard knew it. He chose sentiment over solvency. Stanley Bard inherited this impossible situation in 1968. The building was worth perhaps $2 million. It owed $500,000 in mortgages, needed $3 million in repairs, generated $50,000 annual revenue with $40,000 in costs. The $10,000 annual profit could not service debt and fund maintenance. Stanley had three options: raise rents and destroy the community, sell the building and end the family legacy, or slowly bleed to death financially while pretending the situation was sustainable. He chose the third option for 35 years. The landmark designation in 1966 seemed protective. It was actually catastrophic. Landmarks cannot be demolished or substantially altered. This prevents profit-maximizing redevelopment. The Chelsea could not be converted to condos, could not add floors, could not modernize the facade. Its highest value use was prohibited. Its actual use was unprofitable. Property taxes illustrated the trap. The city assessed the Chelsea based on potential use, not actual income. The assessment assumed market-rate apartments. The Chelsea charged a third of market rates. Stanley paid taxes on phantom income. The bill exceeded $20,000 annually by the 1970s. The building generated $10,000 in profit. The arithmetic was absurd. Stanley borrowed to cover the gap. He mortgaged the building repeatedly. Each loan carried interest. Each loan reduced equity. By 1980, the Chelsea owed $2 million. The debt service was $150,000 per year. The building's net income was $20,000. Stanley was paying debt with more debt. The collapse was inevitable. The minority shareholders saw these numbers. They understood bankruptcy was approaching. They sued Stanley in 1992, not from greed, but from mathematics. The building was destroying their investment. Stanley's artistic mission was expensive charity funded by their capital. The lawsuit revealed the full extent of disaster. The Chelsea needed $15 million in immediate repairs, another $10 million in regulatory compliance. Total cost $25 million. The building's market value was $12 million. It was worth less than the cost to repair it. This was not an asset, it was a liability. Stanley's partnership with BD Hotels in 2000 was his last attempt at solvency. BD Hotels would invest $10 million. Complete renovations. Stanley would retain ownership. They would split profits, except there would be no profits. BD Hotels discovered the $25 million estimate was actually $40 million. They withdrew. Stanley was ruined. The building sold to Chetrit for $80 million in 2011. This seems like success. It was not. The Bard family owned 60%. That meant $48 million. After paying off mortgages and liens totaling $30 million, the family netted $18 million, divided among multiple family members, for 72 years of ownership, for 3 generations of sacrifice. $18 million was not victory. It was defeat bought at market price. Chetrit's disaster followed the same mathematics. He bought the building for $80 million, estimated $15 million in renovations. Total investment, $95 million. To justify that cost, the Chelsea needed to generate $9 million annual net income. At $2,000 per night, that required selling 130 rooms at 90% occupancy. The building had 180 rooms. Math worked, except the math ignored reality. Renovations cost $200 million, not 15. Landmark approvals took years, not months. Resident evictions proved impossible. Legal fees exceeded projections by 10 times. By 2018, Chetrit had invested $300 million. The building needed another $100 million to finish. To justify $400 million investment, the hotel needed $40 million annual net income. No hotel in Manhattan generated those returns. The project was mathematically bankrupt. The Chelsea's financial history was simple. Every owner bought an asset worth less than repair costs. Every owner borrowed hoping future income would cover past debt. Every owner failed. The building's landmark status, irregular layout, and resident activism made profit impossible. The romance obscured this truth. The numbers revealed it. The empire was built on sand. Not metaphorical sand. Actual accounting sand. Revenue projections based on hope. Expense estimates based on ignorance. Valuation models ignoring reality. Every owner believed they were different. Every owner learned they were not. The Chelsea consumed fortunes with mathematical precision. It demanded more than anyone could pay, then demanded more. The building was not cursed by ghosts. It was cursed by arithmetic, the cruelest curse of all, the price of legacy. As the Chelsea's decline became inevitable, its owners clung to the fading glory of a past they could never recreate. Stanley Bard sat in his office in 2007. The small room on the ground floor overlooked 23rd Street. He had occupied this space for 39 years. Every surface was covered with papers, rent ledgers, legal documents, letters from artists thanking him or cursing him, photographs of residents long dead. The room smelled of old paper and resignation. Stanley was 67 years old. His health was failing. Diabetes, high blood pressure. The stress had aged him beyond his years. He still worked 12-hour days, still mediated disputes, still fought to keep the building alive. But he knew the truth. The Chelsea was dying. He was dying with it. The legacy consumed him. His father, David, had saved the building during the Depression, sheltered artists when no one else would, created a community that changed American culture. Dylan, Cohen, Warhol, Mapplethorpe, Patti Smith. These names meant something. They mattered. They happened because David Bard believed art was worth protecting. Stanley inherited that belief. Also, the burden, the expectation that he would preserve what his father built, that he would not be the generation that failed. The weight crushed him. He made choices he regretted, fought battles he could not win, sacrificed his family's fortune to delay the inevitable. His wife had left him years earlier. She could not watch him destroy himself, could not participate in the delusion. Stanley chose the Chelsea over his marriage, over his children, over his own well-being. The building demanded total devotion. He gave it. The residents knew what Stanley sacrificed. Some appreciated it. Others exploited it. They understood Stanley would not evict them, would not raise rents aggressively, would accept whatever they could pay. This created moral hazard. Some residents paid nothing for years, lived rent-free in Manhattan while Stanley borrowed to cover their costs. Was this generosity or weakness? Stanley could not answer. Both were true. He enabled dysfunction while calling it community, funded poverty while calling it patronage. The distinction mattered philosophically. Financially, the result was identical: bankruptcy. The psychological toll was measurable. Stanley developed anxiety disorders, panic attacks, insomnia. He self-medicated with alcohol, gained weight, stopped seeing friends. The Chelsea became his entire world. The building was a jealous lover. It tolerated no competition for his attention. Other owners faced similar trials. Joseph Chetrit was younger and wealthier than Stanley. He should have been immune to the emotional trap. He was not. The Chelsea wounded him differently, but just as deeply. Chetrit had built his identity around success. Every project he touched turned profitable. Until the Chelsea. The building exposed him as fallible, human, capable of catastrophic error. This revelation damaged more than his net worth. It damaged his self-conception. Chetrit's partners watched him deteriorate, saw him obsess over the Chelsea, throw good money after bad, make decisions driven by emotion rather than analysis. He could not accept failure. The building exploited this weakness, drew him deeper into commitment, trapped him with sunk costs. By 2016, Chetrit's marriage was strained. His children rarely saw him. His other business ventures suffered from neglect. The Chelsea was consuming his life. He knew it. He could not stop it. The building had become an addiction. Quitting meant admitting the last 5 years were wasted, admitting he had destroyed hundreds of millions of dollars, admitting defeat. The price of legacy was not just financial, it was spiritual. Both Stanley and Chetrit tied their identities to the Chelsea, believed saving the building would validate their lives, give them historical significance, make them matter. This was hubris. The building punished hubris. Residents paid differently. They sacrificed comfort and safety, lived without heat during winter, showered in cold water, breathed construction dust, endured noise and chaos. Some became physically ill, others mentally unstable. The building's decay invaded their lives. Yet many residents refused to leave. They could have accepted buyouts, found safer housing, chosen comfort over principle. They stayed. Why? Some claimed loyalty to the artistic community. Others cited lack of alternatives. Most could not articulate their reasons. The Chelsea held them through invisible bonds. The building created dependency. Artists who lived there for decades lost the ability to function elsewhere. The chaos became normal. The dysfunction became home. They were institutionalized by bohemia. The Chelsea was their asylum. Leaving meant confronting a world they no longer understood. This dependency was the building's deepest curse. It did not just take money. It took agency, choice, future. Residents aged in place. Their art grew stale. Their connections withered. The Chelsea promised artistic community, delivered isolation, promised creative freedom, delivered stagnation. The photographs on Stanley's wall captured this tragedy. Young artists arrived with hope. Old artists departed with regret. The middle years were invisible. The slow transformation from potential to resignation. The Chelsea did not kill dreams instantly. It suffocated them slowly. The legacy Stanley protected was not entirely noble. Yes, great art was created there. But at what cost? How many artists would have succeeded faster without the Chelsea's enabling dysfunction? How many careers were derailed by cheap rent that removed motivation? The building saved some. It destroyed others. Stanley could not admit this complexity. Chetrit faced his own reckoning. He wanted to resurrect the Chelsea's glory, create a luxury hotel that honored the past while embracing the future. This was impossible. The past was squalor. The future was commerce. They could not coexist. Every attempt to reconcile them failed. The landmark designation exemplified this contradiction. Landmarks preservation assumed the building's past was worth protecting. But which past? The artistic community? That required affordable housing. The architectural details? Those required expensive restoration. The cultural significance? That attracted tourists who disrupted the community. Every goal conflicted with the others. The price of legacy was coherence itself. The Chelsea meant too many things, represented too many contradictions: art and commerce, preservation and progress, community and profit. These tensions could not be resolved. They could only be endured. Every owner tried to resolve them. Every owner failed. Stanley lost his family's fortune. Chetrit lost hundreds of millions. Residents lost their health and sometimes their sanity, all in service of a building that could not be saved because it could not be defined. The Chelsea was Rorschach test in brick. Everyone saw what they needed. Everyone sacrificed for their vision. The building accepted all sacrifices, gave nothing back. The legacy was not worth its price. Stanley knew this in his final years managing the hotel. Chetrit learned it watching his investment collapse. The residents discovered it when the bulldozers finally came. The Chelsea took everything, left only memories. Memories are not nothing, but they are not enough. The ghosts of Chelsea. Even the hotel's most famous residents could not escape its dark grip, with Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen's tragedy marking the beginning of a bloody legacy. October 12th, 1978, room 100. A scream shattered the early morning silence. Hotel staff rushed to the room. They found Nancy Spungen dead on the bathroom floor. A single stab wound to her abdomen. Blood pooled around her body. Sid Vicious, bassist for the Sex Pistols, sat on the bed. Incoherent, covered in blood, he could not remember what happened. The murder transformed the Chelsea's mythology. Before Spungen's death, the hotel was known for artistic achievement. After, it became known for artistic destruction. The building had witnessed death before. Dylan Thomas died of alcohol poisoning after leaving the Chelsea. But that was passive tragedy. Spungen's murder was active violence. It revealed something darker in the building's soul. Sid and Nancy had arrived at the Chelsea months earlier. They were already deteriorating. Heroin addiction consumed them both. The Sex Pistols had collapsed. Sid had no income, no prospects. Nancy managed his solo career, such as it was. They fought constantly, violently. Other residents heard them screaming, heard objects breaking, heard the sounds of physical abuse. Stanley Bard should have evicted them. He did not. The Chelsea's policy was tolerance. Artists needed space to be difficult, to be damaged, to be themselves. This policy protected creative freedom. It also enabled destruction. Sid and Nancy were destroying each other. The building watched, did nothing. The night of the murder, they were both high on heroin and sedatives. Witnesses reported arguing, crashing sounds. Then silence. Then the scream. Police arrested Sid. He claimed he could not remember stabbing Nancy. Maybe he did not. Maybe the drugs erased the memory. Maybe he was lying. It did not matter. She was dead. Sid posted bail. He died 4 months later from a heroin overdose. Intentional or accidental, no one knew. He was 21 years old. Nancy was 20. Their deaths were sensational. The media descended on the Chelsea. Cameras filmed the facade. Reporters interviewed residents. The building became synonymous with punk rock tragedy. But Sid and Nancy were symptoms, not cause. The Chelsea attracted the damaged and desperate, offered them sanctuary, then watched them spiral. The building did not create their problems. It enabled them, provided space where dysfunction could flourish without intervention. Other deaths followed. In 1968, poet and resident Herbert Hunk overdosed in his room. In 1983, writer Arthur C. Clarke's partner died there. Residents whispered about suicides, overdoses, bodies found days after death. The Chelsea accumulated ghosts. Some deaths were natural. The building housed many elderly artists who could not afford better housing. They aged in their apartments, died alone, were discovered by staff during rent collection. These deaths were sad. They were also inevitable. The Chelsea was nursing home and artist colony combined, but other deaths were violent. In 1995, a resident was murdered during a robbery. In 2002, another overdosed on heroin mixed with fentanyl. The building's tolerance for dysfunction created an environment where violence and addiction flourished. The Chelsea was not directly responsible, but it was not innocent either. The building's physical darkness contributed to its psychological darkness. Hallways were poorly lit. Shadows gathered in corners. The Gothic ironwork created ominous silhouettes. Elevators groaned and shuddered. Pipes clanged through walls. The building sounded haunted. It felt haunted. Perhaps it was. Residents reported strange experiences, unexplained sounds, doors opening by themselves, cold spots in certain rooms. Room 100, where Nancy died, was particularly active. Guests reported seeing a blonde woman in the bathroom, hearing arguing voices, feeling overwhelming sadness. These stories were unprovable. They were also persistent. Skeptics attributed the phenomena to suggestion. The Chelsea's reputation created expectations. People saw what they expected to see. The building's age explained the sounds. Old pipes, settling foundations, wind through broken windows. Every ghost story had a rational explanation. But the explanations did not comfort residents. The Chelsea felt wrong, not just old or neglected, something deeper, a sense that the building remembered its tragedies, that violence and suffering had soaked into the walls, that the dead lingered. Dylan Thomas's presence was particularly strong. His room, 205, became a shrine. Visitors left offerings, bottles of whiskey, poems, flowers. The room remained largely unchanged since his death. Same wallpaper, same fixtures. Time had stopped there. Thomas seemed to approve. Leonard Cohen wrote about the building's spiritual darkness. His song, Chelsea Hotel No. 2, described a liaison with Janis Joplin. But beneath the eroticism lay melancholy, the sense that the Chelsea witnessed beauty and degradation simultaneously, that it was sacred and profane, temple and brothel. The darkness attracted those already drawn to darkness. Addicts found the Chelsea. Suicidal artists found refuge there, people running from their lives. The building did not judge. It accepted everyone. This acceptance was double-edged. It saved some. It enabled others to destruction. The staff witnessed the full scope of tragedy. They found bodies, cleaned up after suicides, called ambulances for overdoses. the horrors became routine. This routinization was its own tragedy. Death should not be routine. At the Chelsea, it was. Stanley Bard navigated this darkness with exhausted acceptance. He could not save everyone, could not prevent self-destruction. He provided shelter. What residents did with that shelter was their choice. This philosophy was defensible. It was also convenient. It absolved Stanley of responsibility. But responsibility existed whether Stanley accepted it or not. The Chelsea's tolerance enabled behavior that would be stopped elsewhere. The building became a last resort, a place where the doomed gathered. Some found salvation there. Most found only delay. The end was the same, just postponed. The darkness served a function. It authenticated the Chelsea's artistic credentials. Real art required suffering. Real artists were damaged. The building's tragedies proved its importance. Galleries do not remember comfortable artists. Museums do not celebrate the well-adjusted. The Chelsea's ghosts were its resume. This was the building's cruelest trick. It convinced residents their suffering had meaning, that their pain produced art, that their dysfunction was romantic. Some artists need chaos to create. Most need stability. The Chelsea provided chaos, called it creativity. The distinction between enabling and supporting was lost. Sid Vicious did not become a better musician at the Chelsea. He became a murderer and a corpse. Dylan Thomas did not write better poetry there. He drank himself to death. The building did not improve anyone. It just provided space where deterioration could accelerate without interruption. The ghosts of Chelsea were real, not supernatural spirits, but human wreckage, lives destroyed, potential wasted, dreams abandoned. These ghosts haunted the building. They haunted everyone who lived there. They haunt the building still. The darkness was the price of the Chelsea's freedom. A place without rules attracted those fleeing rules. A building without judgment housed the judged. The Chelsea became repository for everything society rejected. The brilliant and the broken, the talented and the traumatized. Sometimes the same person. The building could not distinguish between them, did not try, accepted all, destroyed most. The survivors told stories about the ghosts, made the tragedy romantic, sold the darkness as authenticity. The Chelsea became famous for its corpses. That fame attracted more people seeking the same darkness. The cycle continued. Room 100 still exists, still rents to guests. The bloodstains are gone. Nancy's ghost allegedly remains. Whether she does or not, her death remains. The building remembers. It always remembers. The billionaire's gambit. Joseph Chetrit thought his money could fix the Chelsea, but even billions couldn't undo the damage that time and neglect had wrought. By 2014, Chetrit's renovation had become a cautionary tale across Manhattan's real estate community. Developers studied the Chelsea as an example of what not to do. His mistakes were cataloged, his losses calculated. The project was hemorrhaging approximately $2 million per month. The meter was running. No end was visible. The construction site resembled an archaeological dig more than a renovation. Workers uncovered layers of Chelsea history. Behind walls, they found paintings. Residents had hidden from landlords, love letters, drug paraphernalia, bullet holes. Each discovery delayed progress. Landmarks preservation required documentation, photographs, analysis. Every artifact became an obstacle. Chetrit hired 5 different architectural firms. Each promised to solve the Chelsea's problems. Each failed. The building resisted modern solutions. Its irregular layout prevented standardization. Its landmarked status prevented alteration. The architects were trapped between historical authenticity and commercial viability. The balance was impossible. The mechanical systems illustrated the nightmare. The Chelsea needed new heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical throughout. Modern codes required fire suppression systems. Accessibility required elevators. The building structure could not support the additional weight. Engineers proposed reinforcing the foundation. The cost was $60 million, just for foundation work. Chetrit approved the expense. He had no choice. The renovation could not proceed without it. Workers excavated beneath the building, discovered the original foundation was shallower than blueprints indicated. The building was literally unstable. It had been settling for 130 years. The tilt was measurable. The entire structure needed to be stabilized. This work took 18 months. During that time, no revenue was generated. The remaining residents sued over construction noise and vibration. Judges ordered reduced work hours. The project slowed further. Chetrit's partners demanded meetings. They wanted explanations, wanted reassurance. Chetrit had none to give. The pressure affected his decision-making. He fired project managers monthly, changed plans constantly, approved designs, then reversed them. This inconsistency created chaos. Contractors stopped trusting his direction, required payment up front. The costs multiplied. Chetrit's personal life crumbled. His wife threatened divorce. His children resented his absence. His business partners questioned his judgment. The Chelsea consumed everything. He could not stop. The sunk cost fallacy trapped him. Every million invested made walking away more expensive. He tried to salvage the project through branding, hired marketing firms to create buzz, announced the Chelsea's rebirth, promised it would be Manhattan's most exclusive hotel. The media was skeptical. Reporters toured the construction site, saw the disaster, published exposés. The Chelsea became a punchline. Chetrit's competitors smelled blood. They circled, made lowball offers, offered to buy the building at a 50% loss. Chetrit refused. Selling meant admitting failure. His ego prevented capitulation. The building exploited this pride, kept him locked in commitment. By 2016, the financial structure was collapsing. Chetrit had borrowed $300 million against the building. The loans required quarterly interest payments totaling $6 million. The ASA building generated zero income. Chetrit paid from other projects. Those projects began suffering. His entire empire was at risk. The lenders grew nervous. They commissioned independent appraisals. The Chelsea's value, even completed, was estimated at $400 million. Chetrit owed $300 million. His equity was $100 million. Except the building needed another $100 million to finish. If he completed renovation, his equity disappeared. If he stopped, the lenders would foreclose. He was trapped perfectly. Chetrit attempted renegotiation, met with lenders, proposed extending timelines, reducing interest rates. The lenders agreed conditionally. They wanted Chetrit to contribute additional personal capital, prove his commitment. He had already invested everything. He had nothing left to prove. The relationship with remaining residents deteriorated completely. Construction made the building unlivable. Heat failed regularly. Water was contaminated. Elevators broke down. Elderly residents climbed stairs. Some collapsed from the effort. Emergency services were called repeatedly. The building became a humanitarian crisis. City inspectors increased scrutiny, found hundreds of violations, unsafe conditions, code violations, failure to protect residents. They issued fines totaling $5 million. threatened to shut down construction entirely. Chetrit fought back, hired attorneys, made minimal improvements. The violations continued. The residents organized more effectively, created a legal defense fund, hired aggressive attorneys, filed class action lawsuits. The litigation expanded to federal court, claimed Chetrit was deliberately making conditions uninhabitable to force evictions. The strategy was called constructive eviction. It was illegal. It was also probably true. Chetrit denied everything, claimed he was trying to preserve the building. The residents were obstructing progress. The courts were skeptical. Judges sided with residents repeatedly, ordered Chetrit to provide temporary housing, cover medical expenses, pay penalties. Every ruling cost millions. The stress manifested physically. Chetrit developed heart palpitations, high blood pressure. His doctor warned him, reduce stress or risk a heart attack. Chetrit could not reduce stress. The Chelsea would not allow it. He tried to find new partners, pitched the project to other developers. Everyone declined. The Chelsea's reputation scared them. The numbers scared them. No one wanted to inherit Chetrit's nightmare. He was alone. In 2017, Chetrit made a final desperate move. He approached a hospitality group, offered to convert the project to a partnership. They would manage the hotel. He would retain ownership, split profits. The hospitality group investigated, discovered the true scope of disaster. They demanded control. Chetrit would become a minority partner in his own project. He accepted. The alternative was foreclosure. The hospitality group restructured everything, fired Chetrit's team, hired new contractors, developed new plans. They estimated the building would open in 2020. The total cost would exceed $450 million. Chetrit's stake was now 20%. He had invested $300 million. His equity was worth $90 million. He had lost $210 million, but at least the project would finish. At least his name would not be attached to total failure. These consolations were meager. The Chelsea had defeated him, reduced him from billionaire developer to junior partner, from visionary to cautionary tale. The building stood on 23rd Street. Construction continued, slowly, expensively. The Chelsea consumed money like fuel, burned through millions without producing anything, just consumed, always consumed. Chetrit's gambit had failed. Money was not enough. Determination was not enough. The Chelsea required something else, something its owners could not give. Perhaps surrender. Perhaps acceptance that the building could not be tamed, only endured. Chetrit learned this too late, after losing his fortune, after sacrificing his health, after destroying his peace. The building taught expensive lessons. It never offered refunds. The last hope. Can the Chelsea be saved? As the Chelsea Hotel faces the end of its days, one question remains. Can this cursed building ever truly be saved? 2019 brought a glimmer of possibility. The new ownership group, led by BD Hotels founder Richard Bourne and real estate investor Ira Drukier, finally had a plan that might work. They understood what Chetrit missed. The Chelsea could not be saved by fighting its nature. It had to be saved by embracing it. Bourne and Drukier were not romantics. They were hospitality professionals. They had restored other historic properties, the Mercer, the Greenwich. They understood brand value, understood that Chelsea's name was worth millions. The building itself was almost irrelevant. The idea of the Chelsea mattered more than the bricks. Their strategy was surgical. Preserve enough artistic character to maintain authenticity. Modernize enough to justify luxury pricing. This balance seemed achievable. It was still nearly impossible, The renovation restarted with new energy. Workers gutted interiors carefully, preserved architectural details. The ironwork was restored piece by piece. Each balcony was removed, sandblasted, repaired, and reinstalled. The process was painstaking, expensive, correct. The mechanical systems were rebuilt from scratch. New heating and cooling, new plumbing using modern materials, new electrical supporting contemporary loads. The building received fire suppression throughout. Accessibility features. The infrastructure was 21st century. The aesthetic remained 19th century. The remaining residents created the final obstacle. About 20 people still lived in the building. They had rent-controlled leases. Legal. Eviction was impossible. Buyouts were expensive. Some residents demanded millions to leave. Bourne and Druckier negotiated, offered generous settlements. Some residents accepted, others refused. They would die in the Chelsea. The building would have to wait. The project timeline extended. 2020 became 2021, then 2022. The pandemic added new complications. Construction stopped for months. Supply chains collapsed. Material costs doubled. Labor became scarce. The budget inflated again. The curse continued, but progress was visible. Completed rooms began appearing. The design balanced historic detail with modern luxury. Original fireplaces were restored. Hardwood floors refinished. But bathrooms were marble and chrome. Beds had high thread count linens. Technology was integrated invisibly. The rooms honored the past while serving the present. The lobby was transformed. The shabby grandeur was preserved but polished. Original artwork was restored and displayed. Photographs of former residents lined the walls. Dylan, Warhol, Cohen, Mapplethorpe. The ghosts were acknowledged, celebrated, monetized. This commercialization troubled some observers. The Chelsea was being turned into a museum of itself, a theme park of bohemian authenticity. The residents who made it famous could never afford to stay there. The irony was obvious, also irreversible. Room rates were set at $800 to $3,000 per night. The target market was wealthy tourists seeking authentic New York experience. They wanted to sleep where Sid killed Nancy, where Dylan Thomas drank, where Warhol filmed. They wanted stories to tell, Instagram photos, proximity to genius. This was grotesque, also economically necessary. The building had cost over $500 million to acquire and renovate. To justify that investment, it needed to generate $50 million annual revenue. At 70% occupancy and $2,000 average rate, the mathematics almost worked. Almost. The restaurant and bar added revenue. The rooftop was converted to event space. Corporate parties, weddings, film shoots. Every inch was monetized. The building that once sheltered penniless artists was now accessible only to the wealthy. The transformation was complete. Opening was scheduled for 2023, then delayed again. Construction issues, permitting issues, resident issues. The Chelsea resisted completion, as if the building knew that opening meant its bohemian soul would die, replaced by commercial hospitality. The few remaining residents watched with resignation. They had fought for years. Some won buyouts, others won the right to stay. But staying meant living in a luxury hotel, surrounded by tourists, isolated from community. They had won the battle, lost the war. The question of salvation was philosophical. The building would survive physically. It would be beautiful, profitable. But would it still be the Chelsea, or just a luxury hotel trading on a famous name? The distinction mattered to artists and historians. It did not matter to the market. Bourne and Druquier were saving the building by killing its spirit. This was the only way. The artistic Chelsea was financially impossible. It always was. The romantic vision required subsidies no one would provide. The building needed commercial success to survive. Commercial success required destroying what made it special. Some residents refused this logic, argued the Chelsea could have been preserved as affordable housing. The city could have bought it, operated it as artist residence. This was fantasy. The city would never spend $500 million on artist housing. The political will did not exist. The economic justification was absent. The Chelsea was trapped between incompatible values: preservation and progress, art and commerce, legacy and profit. Every choice betrayed something. The owners chose survival, chose money. The building would live, its soul would die. But perhaps the soul was already dead. Perhaps it died with Stanley Bard's eviction, or with Sid and Nancy, or with Dylan Thomas. Perhaps the Chelsea's golden age was always in the past, always receding, always mourned, never recoverable. The new Chelsea would be clean, safe, expensive, everything the old Chelsea was not. Tourists would visit, take photos, leave reviews. Charming historic hotel, beautiful restoration. They would not understand what was lost, would not care. The artists who made the Chelsea famous were gone, dead or displaced. Their ghosts remained. Literally, according to some, metaphorically, certainly. The building was haunted by its own history, by the gap between what it was and what it became. Can the Chelsea be saved? The building, yes. The idea, no. They are not the same thing. The physical structure will endure, restored, protected, profitable. The artistic community is gone. The bohemian spirit extinct. The Chelsea that mattered exists only in memory. This was the only possible outcome. The mathematics demanded it. The market required it. The building's decay ensured it. Salvation meant transformation. Transformation meant death of identity. The Chelsea could not be saved and remain itself. The contradiction was fundamental. The question was not whether the building could be saved, but whether salvation was worth the cost. The owners paid hundreds of millions. The residents paid their homes. The artists paid their community. The culture paid a unique institution. Everyone sacrificed. The building endured. That endurance was the Chelsea's final victory. It survived by consuming everything, trying to save it. Then emerged transformed but alive. A phoenix rebuilt by billionaires, rising from ashes of artistic community. Beautiful, hollow, profitable. The last hope was not hope at all, just the inevitable conclusion of forces in motion for decades. The Chelsea would open, would succeed commercially, would fail spiritually. Both were always true. Both were always inevitable. The ruins of ambition. For every artist who sought refuge in its halls, the Chelsea became a monument to ambition undone. The Chelsea Hotel teaches a brutal lesson about the relationship between art and money. The lesson is this: they cannot coexist sustainably. Art requires subsidy. Money requires return. The gap between them is measured in ruined lives and lost fortunes. David Bard believed he could bridge that gap. He subsidized artists for 30 years. His reward was modest wealth and historical footnote. Stanley Bard believed he could continue the mission. His reward was bankruptcy and eviction from the building he sacrificed everything to preserve. Joseph Chetrit believed money could resurrect glory. His reward was $200 million in losses and a minority stake in his own project. The building consumed them all, Not through malice, but through mathematics. The Chelsea's operating costs always exceeded its income potential. This was true in 1883, true in 1940, true in 2010. The numbers never changed, only the owners did. Each owner arrived with ambition. David Bard wanted to create artistic sanctuary. Stanley Bard wanted to preserve his father's legacy. Chetrit wanted to build Manhattan's finest boutique hotel. These ambitions were not compatible with the building's reality. The Chelsea could not support them. It destroyed them instead. The artists who lived there suffered their own ruin. Some achieved greatness. Dylan Thomas, Leonard Cohen, Patti Smith. But were they great because of the Chelsea or despite it? The building provided cheap rent and tolerant community. Also, dysfunction and decay. Which influence dominated? Consider the careers that failed, the poets who never published, the painters who never sold, the musicians who never recorded. They lived at the Chelsea for decades, produced little, died forgotten. The building sheltered them, also enabled their failure, removed the pressure that forces productivity. This was the Chelsea's cruelest trick. It made poverty comfortable, made dysfunction normal. Artists could survive without succeeding, pay minimal rent, create minimal art, grow old in place. The building asked nothing, provided little, consumed time. Some residents recognized the trap, left after a few years, built careers elsewhere. Others stayed forever, became permanent residents. The building's history rather than contributors to it. They confused proximity to genius with genius itself. The Chelsea was full of people who lived near greatness. Few achieved it. The building's tolerance enabled this delusion. Stanley Bard accepted everyone, judged no one. This was compassionate, also destructive. Artists need feedback, need standards, need pressure to improve. The Chelsea provided none. It accepted failure as readily as success. The result was a building full of ruins, human ruins, dreams abandoned, talents wasted, lives half-lived. The Chelsea preserved them like amber preserves insects, beautiful, dead, displayed for observation. The financial ruins were equally devastating. The Bard family lost 70 years of accumulated wealth, 3 generations of sacrifice, gone. They retained only memories and bitterness. The building took everything, gave nothing back of value. Chetrit lost more in absolute terms, $200 million, 5 years of his life, his reputation, his peace of mind. The Chelsea marked him as a failure. Other developers avoided his projects. Lenders demanded higher rates. The building's curse followed him. The secondary victims were countless. Contractors who were not paid, investors who lost capital, lenders who faced defaults, residents who lost their homes, workers who were injured. The Chelsea's failure rippled outward, touched hundreds of lives, damaged them all. The ruins were not just personal, they were cultural. The Chelsea represented an idea that art could be valued above profit, that community mattered more than commerce, that beauty justified sacrifice. These ideas died with the building's transformation. The new Chelsea is profitable, clean, safe. Everything the old Chelsea was not. But something essential was lost: the willingness to subsidize art, to tolerate dysfunction, to value legacy above return. These values could not survive market forces. They never could. The ruins of ambition litter Manhattan, buildings that were symbols, communities that were experiments, dreams that were tested. Most failed. The Chelsea was just another casualty, larger than most, more famous, but not unique. What makes the Chelsea's ruin significant is its visibility. The building was documented obsessively, photographed, filmed, written about. Its decline was public. Its transformation was public. The lesson was public. Art cannot compete with money, ever. This lesson is uncomfortable. We want to believe talent matters, that creativity has value. That culture deserves protection. The Chelsea proves otherwise. Proves that without subsidy, art dies. And subsidies always end, because they are economically unsustainable. David Bard's subsidy ended with his death. Stanley Bard's subsidy ended with bankruptcy. The city could have subsidized, chose not to. The market decided the Chelsea's fate. The market values return on investment, not cultural significance, not artistic community, not legacy. The residents who fought to preserve the Chelsea misunderstood the conflict. They thought they were fighting developers. They were fighting economics. Economics always wins, not because it is right, because it is math. Math is indifferent to values, to culture, to meaning. The ruins of ambition teach that values require wealth to defend them. Without wealth, values are just pretty words. The Chelsea's artistic mission was a pretty idea. It lasted while someone paid for it. When the money ended, the idea ended. This is not cynicism. It is observation. The Chelsea survived 130 years, sheltered thousands of artists, contributed to American culture, then transformed into a luxury hotel. Both facts are true. The transformation does not erase the contribution, but it proves the contribution's fragility. Ambition is not inherently noble. The Bard's ambition to preserve artistic community, Chetrit's ambition to build a landmark hotel. These were ambitions, not virtues. They failed because they conflicted with reality. Reality is expensive. Ambition is not enough. The Chelsea stands as monument to this truth. Beautiful building, tragic history. The ruins are invisible now, covered by restoration, buried under luxury, but they remain. In the gap between what was and what is. In the difference between intention and outcome. In the cost paid versus value received. The ambition was to make art and commerce coexist. To prove culture could be sustainable. To show that legacy mattered. The ambition failed. The ruins prove it. The building endures. That is not victory. That is just survival. And survival is not the same as success. The Chelsea today, preservation or extinction. Today, the Chelsea stands as both a relic and a beacon for the future, holding a mirror to the dreams of New York's past. The Chelsea Hotel opened to the public in September 2023. The renovation had taken 12 years, cost over $600 million, transformed 180 units into 155 luxury rooms and suites. The building was unrecognizable, also unmistakable. The facade gleamed. The iron balconies had been restored to their original Victorian splendor. Each balustrade shined black against red brick. The entrance featured restored mahogany doors, original brass fixtures polished until they reflected sunlight. The exterior was a masterpiece of preservation, perfect, dead. Inside, the transformation was total. The lobby featured original artwork curated from the hotel's collection, Warhol prints, photographs by Mapplethorpe, paintings accepted as rent decades ago, now worth millions, displayed behind glass, untouchable. The art that once was traded for survival was now investment. The rooms balanced historic and modern, original fireplaces restored, exposed brick walls preserved, high ceilings maintained. But the furniture was contemporary luxury. The bathrooms were marble and chrome. The technology was invisible but comprehensive. smart lighting, climate control, entertainment systems. The Chelsea had entered the 21st century. Room rates ranged from $700 to $5,000 per night. The average rate was approximately $2,000. At 75% occupancy, the hotel generated approximately $110 million annually. Operating costs consumed $50 million. Debt service consumed $30 million. Net profit was $30 million per year. The investment would recover in 20 years. This was success by conventional metrics. The building was profitable, preserved, protected. The landmark was saved. Tourism board celebrated. Architecture critics praised the restoration. The Chelsea was a triumph of adaptive reuse. But a different calculation told a different story. The artistic community was destroyed. Affordable housing was eliminated. Cultural institution was commercialized. These losses were not counted in the financial statements. They were counted elsewhere, in the art not created, the artists not sheltered, the community not formed. The few remaining rent-controlled residents existed in strange isolation. They had lifetime leases, could not be evicted, but they lived surrounded by luxury they could not afford. Tourists in the hallways, wealth in every direction. They were exhibits in their own homes, living fossils, proof of the Chelsea's artistic past, reminders of what was lost. The hotel management treated them carefully, maintained their apartments, respected their privacy, but the relationship was fundamentally changed. The residents were not community members. They were legal obligations, historical curiosities. Their presence was tolerated, not welcomed. The preservation question is philosophical. The building was preserved. Its physical structure was saved from demolition, restored to beauty, protected for the future. By architectural standards, this was total preservation. By cultural standards, it was total extinction. The Chelsea that mattered was not the building. It was the community, the artistic ecosystem, the place where struggling artists could afford to live and create. That Chelsea died. Its death certificate was the completion of renovation. Its tombstone was the room rates. Some argue this was inevitable. The economics were impossible. No one would subsidize artists forever. The building had to become profitable or be demolished. The transformation was the only path to preservation. This argument is coherent, also tragic. Others argue alternatives existed. The city could have purchased the building, operated it as affordable artist housing, subsidized the operations, preserved the community along with the architecture. This argument is idealistic, also impractical. The political will did not exist. The budget did not exist. The outcome was determined by what was possible, not what was desirable. The hotel markets itself on its artistic legacy. The website features photos of former residents, tells stories about Dylan and Warhol, sells the romance of bohemian New York. This is branding, not homage. The building profits from the community it destroyed. This is grotesque. Also, standard practice. Every historic hotel does this, sells its past to finance its present. The Chelsea is not unique, just more famous, more tragic, more obviously contradictory. The gap between what it was and what it became is wider, the irony sharper. Current guests sleep in rooms where artists starved, where poets drank themselves to death, where musicians overdosed. They pay thousands for the privilege, take photos, post on social media, stayed at the famous Chelsea Hotel. They do not understand the full story, do not know the cost. The building stands on 23rd Street, looks magnificent, attracts tourists and Instagram influencers, generates profit for its owners, provides employment, pays taxes, contributes to the economy. By every conventional measure, it is successful, but success depends on definition. If success means survival of the physical structure, the Chelsea succeeded. If success means preservation of cultural function, it failed completely. Both assessments are accurate. The contradiction is unresolvable. The future of the Chelsea is already written. It will operate as a luxury hotel, will be profitable, will be maintained, will be protected by landmark status, will exist for generations, but it will never again be what it was. That Chelsea is extinct. This extinction is final. The economic conditions that allowed the old Chelsea cannot be recreated. Manhattan real estate is too valuable. Operating costs are too high. Subsidies are not available. The market has spoken. Art must pay market rate or go elsewhere. The elsewhere is Brooklyn, Queens, New Jersey. Artists cannot afford Manhattan. The creative community moved, found cheaper space, built new communities. The cycle continues elsewhere. The Chelsea is just history now, monument to a lost era. But monuments serve a purpose. They remind us what existed, what was possible, what was lost. The Chelsea reminds us that art once mattered enough to subsidize, that community once justified sacrifice, that culture once transcended commerce. These values existed. The building proves it. Whether they could exist again is the question. Whether society will ever again value art above return on investment. Whether the next Chelsea could survive. The answer is probably not. The economics have changed. The city has changed. The world has changed. The Chelsea today is preservation and extinction simultaneously. The building survived. The soul died. Both are real. Both matter. The stone and steel were saved. The spirit was sacrificed. This was the bargain. No one admits it. Everyone knows it. The Chelsea holds a mirror to New York's transformation. From city that sheltered artists to city that exports them. From cultural capital to financial capital. From bohemian haven to luxury destination. The building embodies this change, cannot escape it. The dreams of the past were beautiful, unrealistic, expensive. They failed because they had to fail. The Chelsea today is what replaces failed dreams, profitable reality. It works financially, it fails spiritually. Both are necessary truths. The preservation is real, the extinction is real. The Chelsea exists between them. A building haunted not by ghosts, but by its own history, by the gap between what it was meant to be and what it became. That haunting is permanent. No renovation can exorcise it. The legacy of the Chelsea Hotel. The Chelsea's legacy is not one of success or survival, but of the devastating cost of ambition, beauty, and decay. The Chelsea Hotel's story is a tragedy without villains. David Bard was not evil. He was idealistic. Stanley Bard was not greedy. He was devoted. Joseph Chetrit was not cruel. He was ambitious. They all believed they could make the impossible work. They were all wrong. The building defeated them through simple economics. The cost of maintaining a landmark exceeded the income from artistic tenants. This equation had no solution. No amount of devotion changed the math. No level of ambition altered the arithmetic. The building consumed everyone who tried to save it. But the legacy extends beyond individual failure. The Chelsea represents a larger truth about American culture. We celebrate art. We do not fund it. We praise creativity. We do not subsidize it. We mourn lost cultural institutions. We do not save them. The Chelsea could have been preserved as a public asset, could have been purchased by the city, operated as affordable artist housing. This would have cost perhaps $300 million. The city did not spend it, chose not to, decided that Chelsea was not worth public investment. This decision was defensible economically, indefensible culturally. The city lost a unique institution, a place that contributed to American art for a century. The loss cannot be measured in dollars, only in art not created, connections not made, community not formed. The Chelsea's legacy is the gap between what we say we value and what we actually protect. We claim to value culture. We protect real estate values. We claim to honor artistic communities. We prioritize property owners. The contradiction is revealed in the Chelsea's transformation. The building that sheltered penniless artists now serves wealthy tourists. The change is stark, obvious. No one pretends otherwise. Yet we accept it, shrug, say it was inevitable. Inevitability is not the same as rightness. Just because something must happen does not mean we should celebrate it. The legacy includes the human cost. Stanley Bard sacrificed his life to the Chelsea, got nothing in return but eviction and debt. The residents who fought preservation lost their homes. The artists who made the building famous could never afford to return. These are not statistics. They are lives damaged. Joseph Chetrit lost hundreds of millions. This seems like justice to some, karma for trying to commercialize art. But Chetrit was not destroying the Chelsea. Stanley Bard already destroyed it financially. Chetrit tried to save it the only way possible. Through commercial renovation. He failed, lost his fortune. The building consumed him too. The legacy is that the Chelsea consumed everyone, rich and poor, artists and tycoons, idealists and capitalists. The building did not discriminate. It took from all, gave to none. This was not supernatural, curse, just economic reality. The building cost more to maintain than it generated. Everyone who owned it eventually realized this truth. Too late. The Chelsea's physical legacy is preservation. The building will stand for generations, protected by landmark status, maintained by profitable operation. Future tourists will photograph it. Future historians will study it. The architecture is saved. The cultural legacy is extinction. The artistic community is gone. The bohemian spirit is dead. The Chelsea as creative sanctuary exists only in memory. Future artists will never experience it, never benefit from it. The loss is permanent. But perhaps the greatest legacy is the lesson that beauty has a cost, that culture requires subsidy, that legacy demands sacrifice, and that sacrifice is usually not worth the cost. The Bards sacrificed everything. Their reward was financial ruin and eviction. The lesson is clear. Do not make that sacrifice. This lesson is dangerous. It teaches that idealism leads to bankruptcy, that protecting culture destroys individuals, that fighting market forces is futile. These lessons are accurate. They are also corrosive. They discourage the next generation from trying. Who will be the next Stanley Bard? Who will sacrifice their fortune to shelter artists? The Chelsea's legacy suggests no one should. The cost is too high, the outcome too certain. Better to accept market logic, convert buildings to luxury, maximize profit, avoid sentiment. If everyone learns this lesson, we lose more than individual buildings. We lose the possibility of spaces outside market logic. Places where art matters more than money, where community justifies subsidy, where legacy transcends profit. These spaces are rare. The Chelsea was one. Now it is not. The legacy forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Can art exist without subsidy? Can culture survive market forces? Can community persist in expensive cities? The Chelsea suggests the answer is no. Not sustainably, not long-term. The economics always win. But the Chelsea existed for 130 years, sheltered thousands of artists, contributed to American culture. The legacy includes that contribution. Dylan Thomas wrote there. Leonard Cohen found inspiration there. Patti Smith created there. This cultural production has value, cannot be measured financially, but is real. The tragedy is not that the Chelsea changed. Change was inevitable. The tragedy is how it changed. From artistic sanctuary to luxury hotel, from affordable to exclusive, from community to commodity. The transformation was total, the loss complete. The Chelsea's legacy is a warning that buildings are not neutral, they embody values. When ownership changes, values change. When economics dominate, culture suffers. This is not opinion, it is the Chelsea's history. The building proves it. The legacy is also a challenge. If we value culture, we must subsidize it. If we want artistic communities, we must fund them. If we believe legacy matters, we must sacrifice for it. The Chelsea shows what happens when we do not. We lose everything worth preserving. The question is whether we learn the lesson, whether the next generation will protect cultural institutions before they collapse, whether we will prioritize community over profit. The Chelsea's legacy depends on our answer. The building stands on 23rd Street. Beautiful, profitable, empty of meaning. The ghosts remain. The art is gone. The community is scattered. The dream is dead. This is the legacy, not what the Chelsea was, but what it became, and what that transformation teaches us about ourselves. We chose money over art, profit over culture, return on investment over community. We made that choice. We live with the consequences. The Chelsea is one consequence, a monument to choices made, values abandoned, dreams sacrificed to arithmetic. The legacy of the Chelsea Hotel is not inspiring. It is cautionary. It teaches that beauty cannot survive without subsidy. That culture cannot compete with commerce. That idealism cannot overcome economics. These lessons are brutal. They are also true. The building survived. The spirit died. This is what we preserved. This is what we lost. The legacy is both. The contradiction is permanent, like the building itself, standing, hollow, beautiful, dead.